Hello and welcome to the Tech Bros podcast.
Hello.
Hello.
We are back with another episode, and I believe we have cyber attacks
Yes, cyber attacks.
They're happening right now as we speak.
as we
Yeah.
speak. Your information belongs to someone else.
You're not safe.
And, you know, this is part where we need sponsorship from NordVPN, I think, or something similar. Surfshark, another one. There we go.
Yep.
That's the one. Joe, protect yourself online.
Yeah.
Protect yourself.
Yes. So, well, probably everybody knows by now that there's been quite a few cyber attacks recently, hasn't there? With online retailers such as Marks and Spencer's, Co-op, and also one of my favorite stores, Harrods.
Harrods.
Yes,
Wow.
You're sporting a Harrods water bottle as
I am. Yes,
Oh, Egerton.
bougie as hell.
Oh, my. This is as bad as the time that you bought the blue tick on X.
Oh no. Wow. That was bad. That's not great.
Yes.
Referring back to a previous episode, guys.
Yes, many years ago, I did pay for the blue tick many years ago.
Egerton, Harrods, Sinclair.
Yes, yes, I practically live there now. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So, yes, there's been a lot of cyber attacks recently, against online retailers, and some of them have actually managed them better than others. Some, unfortunately, details have been stolen.
Yeah.
And I'll get into that a bit more as we go through the episodes. But these hackers have been going after these retailers, stealing information, and in return for this stolen information, they ask for cryptocurrency. They don't actually ask for actual money.
Yeah, they asked for Bitcoin.
Bitcoin.
Well, yeah, because it's not traceable.
Yeah, it's not traceable. And, well, I don't know if they think that these companies are going to actually buy into what they ask for in terms of the demands. But who's selling cryptocurrency? Who's going to sell Bitcoin? Because these big companies are not going to do that.
The thing is, this has been something that's been going on for a long time. You know, you can look in your junk mail folder and you'll find
Loads.
phishing attacks, and they basically, you know, you'll see common ones like, you know, we've been recording your webcam for the last few months. You don't know me, but I know you. That's one of the popular ones. I've had that a few times myself. And I'm like, well, you know what? If you're going to look at my webcam, there's nothing that you could do that I wouldn't be ashamed of. But they say that, you know, to ransom, like it's like ransomware, they expect you to pay in Bitcoin because, as you said, untraceable, right? So just... This kind of goes back to the time the NHS got ransomware as well. That was quite
Oh, yes, that was a big one.
few years ago, which was like horrible because obviously an institution like the NHS needs to be sustained. Has no one learned? Like this is I mean, exploitations happen all the time, but Christ, like Marks and Spencer, I think you mentioned Raj earlier on.
No, that was me.
Was it you?
That was me.
I think before recording also, yeah.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Damn.
horrible, yeah.
Because our universe exists before recording as well.
Yeah, it does. Like
Like a whole other world.
Yeah.
M&S and Co-op.
Yeah.
And I think like with Co-op, they have like a lot of empty shelves. They still, I think, have a lot of problems with the supply chain at
Yes,
the
they
moment.
do.
And getting that up and running again. So there's lots of stores that still have empty shelves, basically.
I think even M&S, even till now, M&S are suffering because my place of work, we've got an M&S there, and usually it's stocked to the brim because we have many people coming through and using an M&S. And for the last few weeks, it's just been like empty shelves. And there's a notice saying that, you know, apologies for the empty shelf. We're currently having issues with our supply chain. So M&S are really going through it.
Mhm.
And is it a supply chain issue because of cyber attacks, or?
Yes, because they've had to shut down their back office systems, which they would have used to do their orders through, and
those orders have to travel over the internet, and therefore, it makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. So
yeah, it's been absolutely crazy, and unfortunately, as mentioned before M&S, they haven't been too successful in terms of trying to mitigate the damage in terms of customers' information being taken. They did specify that unfortunately hackers have been able to get quite a large amount of information, and those customers will be written to. And
what form of compensation are they offering? Because like GDPR breaches are massive, and this is a I mean, it's not a deliberate breach in GDPR, but if they've not got the right security in place to protect users' data, then like,
well,
what's being offered them to?
Well, as far as I know, nothing's been offered. They do report it to and I forgot what the board is. I think they start with F, don't they?
Financial Conduct Authority?
No, there's one that deals with data, and I've forgotten their name from the top of my head. Who anything to do with GDPR breaches have to go through them. Unfortunately, and there's a lot of unfortunate, my details were stolen.
Really?
Oh no.
Yeah, my details were stolen because I happened to
have a loyalty card.
I've got a loyalty card, and I happened to have placed an order online with M&S a few weeks before the cyber attack. So
right.
Yeah, so I got a nice little email to say, unfortunately, your details were taken, and that my password would automatically be reset. So there's been nothing in terms of any compensation. I doubt there will be some sort of compensation because it wasn't a deliberate act. Although, yes, they're still responsible, but I don't think there'll be any compensation with some
changing a password's one thing, but if you've already got your personal information, that's going to be sold on the black market. So in some cases, I mean, there's services online like you'vebeenpwned.com, I think it's called.
Yeah,
where you can check.
I've been on.
I've had a notification from that before telling me that, you know, my passwords or whatever were in a leak. But the good thing is you can check your passwords to see which ones appear. And thankfully, none of the ones that I'm using, you know, in the modern at least within the last 5 or so years, have come up as stored in the database. So I'm grateful. But
which of your passwords are you referring to?
Oh, you know, the one. Hey.
Wait a minute. There was a little hesitation there.
Hey, listen, good luck. My passwords are no less than 15 characters long, so
that's good. That's very good.
Yeah,
it needs to be a long one.
I'm a developer, man. Like, I've got to have good passwords. It's a shame because, you know, it's happening more and more, and you know, software vulnerabilities are an innate thing. And on the side of someone who, you know, does dev, there is immense pressure to produce coercive code that are, you know, is robust and obviously security conscious. But a lot of the time, sometimes it's down to, like, especially use third-party libraries, you know, which most often than not, developers need to use at some point, especially in larger companies. You know, there's always third-party plugins that you might need to use, which is at the mercy of how well devved those are, because you can't control those. So it's, you know, it's something that has to be mitigated. I'd be curious to know how, like, Marks and Spencer were infiltrated, because I don't think they ever really talk about the hows, but obviously I guess you tell everyone how it happened, then will more people try.
That's the thing.
Because I guess like it depends on whether it's the classic image of the hacker like getting access to the mainframe, that sort of thing, or is this more just a phishing attack that is someone who's just not.
Yeah, so obviously, like in corporate companies all the time, like we always get like phishing emails that come through that are sent by IT, and they sort of test the resilience of how intelligent. How anyone would fall for these, I don't know, because there's some, especially a lot of them are usually foreign entities. You get your Russian or your Indian sort of scam emails, and sometimes English isn't always like the best, so you can kind of spot them.
You can spot,
and a lot of emails don't refer to you by name, or the really bad ones where you can see open parenthesis person's name or person's email or person _email close parenthesis. So that obviously someone's tried to run a script somewhere. It's just
mail merge.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the time, I think statistically, a lot of like these sort of attacks happen because someone's been phished and they're given access to the organization via Trojan or a Trojan horse or something like that. So
wow,
I'd be really intrigued to find out what M&S have released as regards to information. Probably something they'll do later on, because I think they owe customers an explanation as to where they went wrong.
They do.
Yeah,
they do. And to be honest, hats off to M&S though, because I follow M&S on Facebook as well.
Yeah.
Every single day there has been an update on what has been going on.
Okay.
So they have been very good in updating customers.
The last thing you want is radio silence when
that is it.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, like a lot of personal details online, I guess it's whether it's offered up, right? A lot of people who complain about, such and such released my details or they were hacked. It's like, hold on a second, you've got an open Facebook. I can get your date of birth. I can get your, where you live. I can get your photo. I can see what you had for dinner last night. So, we have still got a society that works on social media, and they still reveal so much information. I think in the last 10 years, I've drastically pulled back what's public.
Yes.
Other than my name on social media. And that's, I think, something that's very important, because at the end of the day, it's going to be a more commonplace with identity theft, technology, and now with AI, like cloning voices and things like that isn't an actual thing. That's for another episode. But that's relevant though, right? So we're not just dealing with your classic cyber attacks these days. Technology behind them has grown massively. It's terrifying.
And also, like, I know we talked about some of the phishing emails and scams that are quite obvious, but actually some of them are quite sophisticated. And if you don't know,
they are getting better.
If you don't know the sorts of telltale signs that they are phishing attacks rather than something legitimate, then it's quite easy to fall for them. And the reason why is because a lot of them are based on instilling some sense of fear, like the one you were talking about.
Social engineering.
Yeah. So like the one you talk about of like, we can see you, we're watching you, that sort of thing. Some people who don't know about the sorts of tricks they use will fall for that because it's playing on something emotional. That's why they fall for it.
Yeah. And there's also, I mean, I forgot what I was going to say. We'll have to cut this out.
Give it in.
That's a really good point, though.
What?
The one you just made.
Oh yeah. Cut that out.
You know what? The funny thing is, because I've seen that before, and it's just like, I don't have a webcam. So how do you have access to a cam that doesn't exist?
If you're on the internet, Egerton, someone can.
I see. This is the thing.
Like, it is possible.
Yeah,
it is very, very possible. As long as you're on if you're on an open IP, it's possible.
If you're thinking about it logically, then you can figure out that it's not legitimate, right?
Yeah.
But some people will not be they just won't think of it.
No, they feel.
We'll go back to, say, the older generation, people who are they're not as tech savvy. I know for a fact that let's say my mum is old, but she, bless her, if she's hearing this, so you're not old, mum. But she's not tech savvy, and she does struggle with technology, and I feel that she'd be very easily scammed into, believing that she's been compromised. And all it takes is for a link to be clicked, and that's it. They have access to everything.
See, and this is what I told my mom as well, because last week, she was like, "Oh, can you buy this thing off Costco for me?" I looked at the link. It's not even Costco.
It wasn't Costco.
Oh no.
You know what they've done? They have got these at site layout like Costco.
Yeah.
They've got the Costco logo. And if I didn't tell her, and I actually screenshotted it, and I even circled, I said, unless this says Costco, then this is not Costco.
Right.
So even that, it's just,
It's not hard now. There's
It's not
on a
hard.
script to strip the HTML from a
That's
website and
it.
replace links with your own link. Related to a Trojan horse or a ransomware or anything like that. I mean, they've got more sophisticated even with like your telephone scam calls. God bless Apple for catching up to Samsung, by the way, with regards to caller ID saying
Oh yeah.
suspected scam.
Yeah.
Because the amount of times I'm not really one for picking up numbers I don't know, but someone doesn't usually have my number unless I've given it to them, so I have to give the call the benefit of the doubt. So it's really nice having a feature like that now. But it's especially for people who are not tech savvy but still have a mobile phone. It's great to be able to give them that sort of a little bit of protection, I think.
Although they still need to work on that though, because
It's not always accurate.
it's not accurate.
No.
Because what I've noticed is Uber Eats. If you order something on Uber Eats, like I did yesterday, it comes as suspected scam, and it's actually Uber Eats.
And yeah, I can get it. I use my Alexa to find my phone sometimes because I can't find it. Even though I could easily go and just turn my laptop on and find my iPhone.
Yeah.
If I don't, I'm lazy. I don't want to have to turn my laptop on to do that. I'll just say, Alexa, call me, and Alexa will call my phone, and it comes from a US number. Never comes up as a suspected scam. Which I'd imagine it would, just because it's not a local number. But I guess maybe it can't. It's always randomized as well.
Yeah, exactly.
But do you think like a good strategy for people is to just be overly cautious and assume that anything that doesn't look familiar is a scam?
The age-old phrase: if it's good enough, if it looks too good to be true, it probably is. Definitely, definitely something I still live by. I have many times told not just my mum. Like, I remember a few years ago, actually quite a few years ago now, a colleague of mine, when I was working inside one of the large supermarket chains in the UK, and she was talking about how she was picked up by a modeling agency, and they were like super like into her, but she had to pay like £130 for this thing.
Yeah.
Portfolio of pictures taken, and then she'd be guaranteed. And bless her, beautiful girl, like absolutely the type of person they would target for.
Yeah.
And I overheard this conversation from where I was standing, and the only reason it caught my attention is because my mum had the same thing. And this was where a situation happened with my mum. She had a credit card fraud team call her up and say, we just want to check that this transaction's fraudulent because someone's tried to charge £6,000 to your credit card.
Wow.
Because she paid £50 to a modeling agency. I could invert quotation marks for those who can't see me. And I said, like, I told her it was a scam from the jump.
Yeah.
But she still went along with it. And then about a week later, that call came through. She was panicking, and rightfully so. It's scary.
Yep.
But it was so easy for them to do, and they were definitely maybe they were operating in the UK. But yeah, and then when she said this, my colleague, my ear picked it up straight away, and I went straight over to her and I said, can you show me the email that you received from this company and like because it just sounds really familiar. And she said, sure. And she showed me the email, and I went, her name, I can't remember her name, but I didn't say her name. I said, this is a scam.
It's a scam.
And she goes, how do you know? And I was like, trust me, my mum fell for it, and they charged her credit card like £6,000. And she went, what, really? She was really panicking because she was like really excited.
Yeah.
And I didn't mean to like railroad a conversation, and I certainly want to embarrass her.
Yeah.
But I wanted to prevent her from making a huge fucking mistake. Excuse my language, or to blur this one out. Wait. I just wanted to prevent her from making a huge mistake. And she said, like, can you show me the email, like, to prove it? Like, I said, look, I will find this email, because I remember forwarding the email my mum received to my email, so I had a copy of it.
Yeah.
And I found it, pulled it up, word for word, the email was. And she was really grateful. She was upset, but really grateful. But it just shows, like, these companies operate and nothing gets done about them at all. It's wild that and then that's still happening. These model agencies, these websites haven't been taken down. These numbers haven't, they've changed over the years, sure, but these websites still exist, and they all have like offices, and they say the studios, like they saying their studio was in Oxford Circus, but the address, when I looked it up, and this is the reason why I was sussed from the minute my mum mentioned it to me, and it was just like one of those, you could buy those virtual offices.
Yeah.
That's sort of.
But it's like, do they all go to like some sort of convention or something and agree or
Scam
on the scam email, what we're gonna put in the scam email, because it's always the same.
Well, I mean, the thing is that it's profitable because you can blast an email to loads and loads of people.
That's it.
And you only need a small proportion of them to fall for it.
Yeah.
And then, they can just optimize it. They can make changes, and they can see kind of how effective it is. Almost like an A/B test.
I don't know if you guys watched them. I do get great pleasure in seeing scam betas on YouTube.
Yeah.
And they're just huge props to these guys who are also hackers, but also like clearly better hackers, and they're ethical hackers, right?
Yeah.
So, I like ethical hacking. I think it's a great thing. And these sort of people that, work with intelligence agencies, the police, and corporation, obviously. And obviously, like, a lot of these scams do come from Indian call centers, and the police in India need this help because they don't have the infrastructure to be able to, at least from what I've seen and observed, they don't have the infrastructure as local police departments to be able to deal with it. So these scam betas have been instrumental in police identifying scam call centers. And, it's a positive step because, these guys are raking in thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds from a lot of pensioners all over the world, in the United States, England. I'm pretty sure maybe most English speaking countries, I think, specifically, because I think those are the main target areas for a lot of those scam centers.
And I think the other good thing about those scam betas, not bakers, but it's scam bakers. It's basic. It's like a chocolate cake, but it has a surprise.
Scam.
No, so the good thing about them is that it puts the focus also on the scammers, and embarrasses them in the process. But I feel like
they have fun. They have a lot of fun with it.
Because I think, like, to your story, I think when someone finds out they've been a victim of a scam, it almost like it feels embarrassing. Like they feel like, oh, I shouldn't have fallen for it, and then people might ask, like, oh, how could you fall for that, and that sort of thing. And it's very reasonable. Like they, especially when they are very sophisticated, it's almost like there is a social angle of like, oh, you don't want to almost admit that you've been scammed too. So that, I mean, plays it.
The modeling one is an example. Like, I'm not going to say it was a bad scam as far as like how believable it was, because it's believable. When you have a bunch of modeling agencies thrown in a pool of real modeling agencies, and the websites are very well done.
Yeah.
They're incredibly well done.
Professional.
Yeah. So how are you supposed to identify them? If they're well done, most websites will use stock images that you can find readily available on the internet anyway, that are official websites. So, when you're essentially, building off of the same templates that other legitimate agencies are doing. How do you get through it? But the thing, just going back to it though, was at no point, I'm a suspicious person. I mean, as in a person that's not suspicious. I'm suspicious of a lot of things. I'm very, very cautious on it online.
Absolutely.
So for me, it was like a no-brainer. It is going back to that. If it looks too good to be true, it probably is. My mom isn't a believer of that, and I don't think she, it happened. So, but it was not a sloppy job. It was very well done.
Yeah.
She spoke to a guy on the phone and rang them. So, everything was, looking to be a normal activity to reach out to someone. But yeah, it happened. But I'm glad I'm at least saved someone. And my mom now always checks with me if she's unsure about something, which is good because I don't want her to fall for it again. But yeah, it's just terrible. And going back to what happened at M&S, like that's social engineering with enticing people in. So when you got people who are actually actively targeting organizations, that's a completely different kettle of fish.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is interesting of almost like if you are a hacker and you have this sort of social engineering route, and then you also have the sort of brute force work your way into the system.
Yeah.
And it's almost like whilst maybe there isn't sort of widespread tech literacy and people might fall for these sorts of things, then it's almost like that route is more profitable than being necessarily like more sophisticated when it comes to trying to hack it. Like I think we talked about the GTA leak that came out.
Yeah,
that's because someone managed to social engineer their way into the Slack team for Roxy.
Yeah.
It's
and obviously
like
people are sharing clips on Slack.
Yeah.
I mean, what a way to get in. That's no, it's impressive.
Yep.
Not for the person who's probably ended up now on a huge lawsuit from Rockstar Games.
Well, yes.
Like some of these people do have like some absolute conas to do this, because if I could, I probably still would never do it, just because I would fear the consequences immensely. Like the consequences are so, maybe not so much when you're in, East Asia or, the South Asian, I guess, where you got a little bit of a, we'll say, governmental corruptions or, local issues, like mentioning India, infrastructure is not built well enough to sustain or to protect, it's no wonder people in those, and also like there's desperation as well. Like, some of these places have people do this out of necessity to, try and make a bit of money. Because I know for a fact that the person that's on the phone that's trying to scam you, they're not making that big bucks. That they're someone else who's higher up and is
whoever's heading up the organization.
So I don't fully blame the individual that's on the other end of the phone or carrying out these, unless it's like a lone wolf. I feel like some of these people are forced into a situation by their circumstances. I don't like that they do it. I don't think they're ethical people, but there are some level of sympathy, I guess, that they're in that situation.
But also it's tricky when they are lone wolves, because I think at least if you have say state sponsored networks of attackers, of cyber attackers, then at least you can sort of start to trace bits of that network. But I think there's been this term that's been coined up of spider networks that are happening, of these lone wolves that aren't really connected. As Egerton said, they're not going to a conference and discussing this stuff. But that becomes harder to trace. You can't sort of make any connections between them.
It's down to whether they make a mistake, and intelligence agencies are, what are the police doing with regards to the M&S hacking? Like, who hacked? Where did this come from? Was it within the UK? Is it external? We've got, the same sort of suspicions surrounding things like elections and election tampering from like Russia and things like that. It's how do governments protect businesses and ultimately consumers so much, especially in an ever-evolving internet and ever-evolving technology space? It's scary to think that it's getting better now, and like in the sense that they're getting way more intelligent, and now we've got the introduction of AI which can execute things much faster than a human can. And anyone could ask something like ChatGPT to write a piece of Python code that could potentially do something like this, although I wouldn't recommend it.
No, because you get found out
very quickly. Like, there's a reason why people do this, but I don't know. It's definitely a space that I'm watching, and I feel like, even though I'm working in the technology space, I'm concerned that at some point I'm going to be made redundant to some level of like my capability. At some point I'm going to be a 50, 60-year-old person. Am I going to be able to keep up with technology? Like, what's going to happen in like 20 years time?
Yeah.
Am I going to be savvy enough to keep up with it? Because my stepdad was really good at computers, I remember, in the 2000s. And now he asks me for really simple things like, how do I copy this? I'm like, dude, this is like computers 101. But things have changed and the layouts change. And I think, if you become too familiar and you don't educate yourself, which I find maybe is a common thing, there are less things that I want to keep myself educated on as I've gotten older.
Yeah.
I know I'm only 35, but like 25-year-old me would be enthusiastic about, I don't know, virtual reality, and I couldn't give a crap. So, am I eventually going to become disinterested and open myself up to vulnerabilities in the future? I don't know. I'm not going to question my future intelligence, but like, I'm not saying, is it laziness? Is it just society? Is this a natural progression of growing up? And obviously, things will get way better and way more intelligent. It might be just AI looking to make money for some reason,
I mean, that's why I think it's an interesting question about how to maintain tech literacy in the sort of general population, especially if these kinds of things become more sophisticated, and then they have to figure out essentially, how to kind of stay on top of those sorts of things and latest developments. But obviously, a lot of people just won't, they're just not interested. But then when it comes to things like phishing attacks and stuff like that,
well,
they butt up against that system.
Yeah, I mean, not only that, it's not just about like trying to take money from people, but this is scary when it comes to like younger children, like who use technology. Children as young as 5, my daughter's age, is like accessing this kind of stuff. I don't let her have a tablet, and it's very restricted, and I'll keep it that way for as long as I can. But social engineering on children, teenagers, and stuff like that, like using social media, is terrifying.
Yeah,
I think the concept of it is quite scary. So watch this space, and protect your kids. Make sure you take advantage of technology that provides safeguarding for your children and stuff like that. And obviously, look out for your parents and look out for your grandparents, because
and look out for yourselves.
Of course. Yeah, no, I'm not saying I'm not saying every 30, 25-year-old is going to know everything. Like,
and it's better if you actually maintain an attitude of, I'm not thinking, I already know all the tricks, there's no way that I could fall for it. I think like in any context, you should be suspicious of everything.
Yeah,
and
if you become too complacent in anything.
Yeah. And know that you're vulnerable, that you could fall for any sort of potential cyber attack or something like that.
Yeah.
Just be suspicious of everything.
Yep. And just as a correction from myself, because of the border I was saying that deals with data breaches, it does not start with F. It is actually the Information Commissioner's Office.
You had a 1 in 26 chance.
Yeah, and I failed all of them. Yeah, so it's the Information Commissioner's Office. That's the board that deals with all GDPR breaches, and that's where all companies need to report to if they do have a GDPR breach. And just a final thing from me, in terms of keeping your details safe, there are different companies that could help to keep your data safe or notify you if your details are on the dark web. So Experian is very good in case somebody happens to make a financial application on your name. So Experian will always notify you if a soft search or a hard search has been made on your account. The other one is
You've been pwned.
You've been pwned.
Yep.
Pwned, yeah. That's another one. Another one is ClearScore.
Yep.
ClearScore is very good. I use ClearScore. And they've notified me a few times that my old passwords, and I'm saying old in capitals, has been noticed on the dark web. So, yeah, that's one. And I forgot the other one.
I mean, we can list
Yeah,
these
can
on the
list-
website.
Yeah,
so
we'll
we're
list
gonna
these on
get
the
them all.
website.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely make use of those services, and a lot of them are free. And with like you mentioned before, if you do ever suffered from GDPR breaches, don't just take it on the chin. Make sure you communicate your frustration to institutions. They have absolute obligations to protect your data if they're using your data, and that's something that I would 100% encourage anyone to do.
Yeah.
That's that's yours, and you have a right for them to remove it at your request as well. So that's something you should absolutely take advantage of. If you have given your personal details to any company, you can request for them to delete that data.
Yes, absolutely.
Not any identifying data.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that wraps us up for the this episode though.
I was going to ask one more thing.
Go for it. Go.
Oh, just to say that if you also start a new job, usually you do some kind of GDPR, data protection training,
Yeah.
cybersecurity essential training, that sort of thing. I mean, they tend to be quite dry, I suppose, and people maybe do those courses and think, oh, I already know all this. But I think also it's useful to
Refresh yourself.
refresh yourself, engage with it, No, don't just sort of see it as a formality.
No.
Yeah.
If
It's not a joke.
if you have a data protection officer and you'll
Speak to them. Have so ask questions. That's what they're there for.
exactly, yeah,
That's what they're there for.
yeah. So yeah, absolutely.
I support that fully.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, guys. I think it's been more of a serious topic one. I think but this is serious. Like data is serious.
It is.
It's
You
not a
should
joke.
take it serious. It's not a joke. But yeah, no, this is an important topic, and I think it's one that has to be had every so often. And yeah, look out for your data, guys.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Take it easy.
Bye.
Bye-bye.